Let's get going. Michael Chong says, a major wake-up call. This is the front page of the Washington Post. Quote, Germany is concerned about whether the Canadian armed forces. Turkey is disappointed by the Canadian military's refusal. Haiti is frustrated by Ottawa's reluctance, etc. Trudeau says Canada will never meet NATO spending goal. Discord leaks show. So this is the Washington Post Discord leaks. I guess, Michael Chong continues. He says, through the Washington Post, quote, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has told NATO officials privately that Canada will never meet the military alliance's defense spending target. This is highly irresponsible on the part of Mr. Trudeau. Is Canada a G7 country or not? And this is Michael Chong. This is the shadow foreign minister. So he's commenting on this. This is kind of as official as it gets, the opposition party. Malcolm says Trudeau told NATO that Canada will never meet its spending goal. Discord leaks show. Without NATO, Canada is defenseless. This is an abomination or abominable abdication of our responsibilities to protect Canadians, and downright scary as well. Right. And here's the Washington Post piece talking about exactly this. Prime Minister Trudeau told NATO officials privately that Canada will never meet the military alliance's defense spending target, according to leaked secret Pentagon assessment obtained by the Washington Post. The document's anonymous author says Canada's widespread military defenses are harming ties with security partners and allies. The document, which has not been previously reported on, says enduring defense shortfalls led the Canadian Armed Forces to assess in February that it could not conduct a major operation while simultaneously maintaining its NATO battle group leadership in Latvia and aid to Ukraine, and that the situation was not likely to change without a shift in public opinion. The United States and Canada, neighbors and close NATO allies, share responsibility for defending the continent as partners in the North American Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD. Washington has long pressed Ottawa to boost its spending on defense and hasten plans to upgrade military capabilities and infrastructure in the Arctic, where officials of both countries warn that Russia and China are being more assertive. Interesting. Right? But the document, part of a trove of classified material leaked to the Discord messaging app, allegedly by a member of the Massachusetts National Guard, offers new insights into the dissatisfaction and concerns in the United States and beyond about Canadian defense policy and priorities. Quote, widespread defense shortfalls hinder Canadian capabilities, the document says, while straining partner relationships and alliance contributions. The assessment, which bears the seal of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff, says Germany is concerned about whether the Canadian Armed Forces can continue to aid Ukraine while meeting its NATO pledges. Turkey is disappointed by the Canadian military's refusal to support the transportation of humanitarian aid after February's deadly earthquake there. The document says, and Haiti is frustrated by Ottawa's reluctance to lead a multinational security mission to that crisis-racked nation. Okay, I don't support any military intervention in Haiti at this point in time. I don't understand what's going on there enough to say I support it one way or the other. They're saying gangs are taking over. It looks like the gangs are trying to take control of the government from maybe a foreign influenced entity, WEF. Sure. But Canada coming in to crush a civilian or civil war in Haiti doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't think that that's a good idea. Even though NATO does that all the time. Does that all the time. Probably, I think. Anyway, I don't agree with it. And I don't agree with wars of changing leadership in order to get better trade relationship or better positioning in trade, etc. I don't think any of that's beneficial, although that's been U.S. foreign policy, Western foreign policy for decades. Back to the article. Trudeau asked Wednesday afternoon whether he made the comments the document alleges, did not respond directly. Of course he didn't. Here's him answering or not answering, dodging that question. Here we go. It's a minute of Trudeau, so Trudeau warning.
Did he tell NATO officials Canada will never meet its 2% military defense spending target?
I continue to say and will always say that Canada is a reliable partner to NATO, a reliable partner around the world, and with our military investments, with the support we give to Canadians, we will continue to be doing that.
But about the 2% target, what did you communicate to NATO officials?
We will continue to be working on investing in giving the support necessary to the men and women of the Canadian Forces to deliver, whether it's in Latvia, whether it's in NATO operations around the world or UN operations. Canada continues to be a partner that is much sought after, and that's why we're so pleased that we've invested increases in about 70% through our Strong, Secure, Engaged in defense spending. We've moved forward on modernization of NORAD. We're going to continue to be there to make sure that the women and men of the forces have the tools they need. Merci beaucoup.
So, Justin Trudeau dodges the question, reframes it, and answers what they've done, not addressing what the document alleges he said. Has nothing to do with the question that she asked, other than it's kind of in the same general realm. But that's what politicians do these days. They reframe the question and answer the one they want to answer, not the question that was asked. Glenn Greenwald says that the Washington Post worked to expose the identity of the leaker, and then, with him out of the way, arrested by the FBI, somehow assumed exclusive control of the Discord leaks and is doling them out in accordance with the CIA Department of Homeland Security agenda, is one of the most bizarre things I've seen. So pay attention to that. It is very, very interesting that all of this is seeing the light. Well, this is seeing the light of day. It's out there, and they're reporting on it in a way that is, well, the Washington Post is owned by Jeff Bezos, I believe. Or maybe it's his wife now that owns it. I think they had a divorce, and he got it in the divorce, I think. But fundamentally, these media outlets reporting on this, it's interesting. Pay attention. They have to control the narrative of what's out there, and that's how they're doing it. They're trying to take control through removing the leaker and then having the Washington Post publish stories about it. And is it as honest as it could be? It's interesting. Their governments are responding. Canada is ignoring it. Just like Justin Trudeau ignores the citizens, he's ignoring foreign countries' disappointment in his inability to pay his rent. Basic bills, right? Chris says Governor General Mary Simon is a Trudeau Foundation alumni. And here's Mary Simon's Trudeau Foundation page. Okay, so there you go. Mentor in 2014. She's a Trudeau Foundation alumni. And you can see this Trudeau Foundation website here. And so that's an interesting thing. And is that acceptable? Is that acceptable? Elizabeth May is too. Is that surprising? I'm not all that shocked about all of that, right? You know what is not in Mary Simon's biography? So here's the Governor General of Canada, Mary Simon, and we just saw Mary Simon is a Trudeau Foundation alum, okay? And here's her Trudeau Foundation page, okay? But if you look at the biography on the Governor General, gg.ca.english Governor General, and if you look up Trudeau, even if you look up Trudeau, Trudeau's name's not on there. Doesn't come up. And if you look up Trudeau Foundation, of course it doesn't come up because there's no Trudeau. So isn't that weird? Is that a conflict of interest that should be what's the word? Disclosed. Shouldn't that be disclosed? Isn't that something that's important to mention? Oh yeah, well, she was just a little bit of the time in a Trudeau Foundation role, whatever. Just shouldn't you mention that? Right? I don't know. Maybe. Sam Cooper says, remember the other day when I said that the RCMP went and parked outside of Chinese police stations operating in Canada to intimidate them or something, which didn't work. And then we found out yesterday that the FBI arrested Chinese people who were operating Chinese police stations in the United States. So they were arrested. And that's interesting, don't you think? And because they were arrested, the Canadian government or the Canadian RCMP are now acting. That's interesting too. So here's Sam Cooper. He says the RCMP are actively investigating Chinese government police stations following arrests in the U.S. They're going to drive around them, get out of the car this time, walk around, look menacingly at the door. Here's the Global News article about this. Yesterday, I saw a picture of I think it was Justin Trudeau and the two people who were arrested for this, Chen Jinping and Liu Jinwang. And it was just an image. And this morning when I went to put it in the show, it was gone. It was deleted. So that's very interesting. And it is, how are we supposed to get to the truth when there's zero accountability, right? Sam Cooper says, I've said before in an interview with Steel Talk and Jody Vance for a PM to cite counter-arguments that echo what the CCP media intelligence distortions assert, that a foreign agent registry is dangerously xenophobic, is strange and to me seems increasingly concerning. So Justin Trudeau is trying to make the argument that the foreign registry would be a bad idea. And Sam Cooper again, he says, Globe editorial, why is Justin Trudeau sowing confusion about a foreign influence registry? So here's that. Asked this week about the need for Ottawa to create a foreign influence registry, Prime Minister Trudeau invoked the internment of Japanese Canadians in the Second World War and warned against the dangers of creating registries of foreigners in Canada. The one thing has nothing to do with the other, as we will show. So the question becomes, why is Mr. Trudeau sowing confusion about a registry that exists in the United States and Australia, and which somehow has not led to the mass incarceration of citizens in those countries. That question is made more pressing by the fact that the FBI this week arrested 2 men in New York accused of operating one of Beijing's notorious overseas police stations, in which members of the Chinese diaspora are harassed and intimidated by Chinese state personnel. And it goes into talking about what's happening there. But why is Justin Trudeau trying to mirror the rhetoric pushed by the CCP about how this is racist? Not racist. You would only be needing to register on the registry if you wanted to influence politicians, right? Very interesting. Real Andy Lee show says Liberal MP Melanie Joly meets with Chinese billionaire president of the China Cultural and Industry Association and controversial Trudeau Foundation donor Zhang Bin in April 2018 during a trade mission to Beijing. John Macklem was also present. No intersection though, right? Credit to my friend VTMX for the find. So very interesting there. And I reached out to Andy Lee to see if she saw the picture that I saw, because I tagged her, I retweeted it and tagged her in it. And I was hoping, I thought I had backed it up, but I don't think I did. So I couldn't find it in my, usually I'll take a screenshot of something like that if I think it's interesting, but I didn't this time. So, or I can't, it's not in my screenshot folder. So, oh well. And sometimes it doesn't work. So what are you going to do, right? But I thought maybe Andy Lee backed it up. So shucks on me. But if I see it, if I get a response from Andy Lee, I'll show it to you. Or if she responds to me tomorrow, I'll show it to you. Patrick says, talking about Ukraine, Bernie Sanders says U.S. and NATO cannot sit back and allow Putin's aggression to go unresponded to. NATO was aggressive in the first place. NATO committed a coup in 2014, which started the war. And in this instance, NATO is expanding its borders past where they agreed not to expand their borders in an agreement in the 90s in order to enrage Russia, in order to provoke Russia, and then after the provocation, they were going to blame Russia for the aggression, right? So it's really interesting. But what he says here, what Bernie Sanders says here, and I can't help but think maybe this is some 5D chess. Maybe there's some unseen entity pulling some strings. But Putin is the reason they can't focus on fighting climate change in the next pandemic? Really? You don't say. Interesting. Here's Bernie Sanders saying that.
Should America send F-16s?
It's not an issue that I've been heavily involved in, but I support what the president is doing. I think what Putin did was outrageous, not only for the people of the Ukraine and all the destruction, not only for the thousands and tens of thousands of Russian soldiers who have been dying. We need a world now, if we're going to combat climate change, if we're going to combat future pandemics, we need a world to come together. And Putin has radically disrupted that, and that is a real tragedy. But I think at the end of the day, the United States, NATO cannot sit back and allow Putin's aggression to go unresponded to.
Right? I think that it's very interesting that he's blaming Putin for not being able to focus the world on fighting climate change and the next pandemic. Weird situation. And it feels like that might be, not by design, but it might be gumming up the plans to move on already, to get to the next stage of all of this. And the time that it's taking to get to the next stage may be undoing the ability to get to the next stage. Who knows? And so Putin sitting there in Ukraine, doing what he's doing, taking back that land, that disputed land from 2014, et cetera, might just throw a monkey wrench in their plans. Now, at the same time, he's participating in BRICS, which is participating in the de-dollarization, which is declining, which is winning a different kind of war against the same enemy, because Ukraine versus Russia is a proxy war for NATO-US war. And so if Russia effectively devalues, de-dollars the world, de-dollarifies the world, and wins economically, then they win the whole kit and caboodle, right? So who knows? Who knows what's going on? But it seems like the U.S. is behind on pretty much everything. It seems like they're being manipulated and they're pinned in chess. You can put your opponent into a position where they only get to choose which piece they're going to lose. They're going to lose a piece. They've lost. They've made an error that is resulting in them losing a piece for sure. The only choice they get to make now is which one they get to lose by moving the other piece and allowing the other one to get taken. And that's called a pin, I think. I hope so. I think so. There might be another technical name if somebody gets out. I don't know, but anyway, I'm not all that good at chess. But I did read a couple of books in there. But fundamentally, that's the position we're in now. We just get to choose our loss. That's all we get to do. And maybe with BRICS coming in and the Ukraine war being lost, maybe they lose both pieces. We lose both pieces. Yikes. Okay, let's move on to ethics. What ethics? Ethics in Canada? Don't be silly. I know. Toronto Star says, breaking, the sister-in-law of a Liberal cabinet minister has stepped down as the interim ethics commissioner a day after the House of Commons committee agreed to investigate her appointment. Oh, they're going to investigate this obvious conflict of interest? The appointment itself is a conflict of interest? Interesting. I guess I'll step down now. Here is Michael Barrett. He's talking about this after leaving the House of Commons. I'm just going to show about a minute of this.
Hey folks, I'm just coming from question period and heading down to committee, but we have some breaking news. Now, yesterday at the Ethics Committee, we passed a motion calling for the Ethics Commissioner and her brother-in-law, who's a member of Cabinet, who has been found guilty of breaking ethics laws, to testify at a study at the Ethics Committee. Now, during question period, we learned the news that the Ethics Commissioner has resigned. Now, this is, of course, the right thing to do. The appointee was the sister-in-law of a sitting member of Justin Trudeau's cabinet who had been found guilty of breaking ethics laws. But it leaves the office of the Ethics Commissioner in a position where they're now unable to fulfill all of the responsibilities that they have. There are functions of that office that can only be discharged by the actual Ethics Commissioner. And so now with the interim commissioner having resigned, we don't have a functioning commissioner's office. It's paralyzed. And it's paralyzed because of the politicization of this role by Justin Trudeau and his cabinet. And Canadians need to be able to have confidence that these independent officers of Parliament, like our Ethics Commissioner, are there to keep an eye on things so that when complaints are made about the type of thing that, well, frankly, saw this Prime Minister twice found guilty of breaking our ethics laws, that we know that the person making those decisions avoids even the appearance of a conflict of interest.
The problem, though, is the ethics office costs a lot of money. It doesn't really hold anybody accountable. Here's your $500 fine. That's the worst I could do to you. I can't believe you broke the ethics laws. You're intolerable. You're unethical, Mr. Prime Minister. And your fine is $500. Okay. Thanks. See you later. Right? I mean, how many cabinet ministers? Mr. Morneau, he resigned. Mary Ng didn't resign. There are a whole bunch of cabinet ministers. There are a whole bunch of people, high-placed people. Amanda Alvaro got plum contracts just under the sole source level. If you have a contract that's a certain amount of money, you can do a sole source contract with no competition. If you cross like $2,500, then you have to have a competition and you have to take the person who is the lowest, I guess. So it is an interesting, I don't know if you have to take the person who's the lowest, but it's heavily incentivized to take the lowest bid, I think. And so I think that it's interesting that we are in a situation where the ethics office is paralyzed because the office of the ethics commissioner is vacant. But really, the reality of the situation is the office is a farce anyway. The ethics commission is a slap on the wrist. There's no real consequences for it. In fact, it kind of papers over the fact that an ethics law was violated by giving a consequence that isn't really a consequence to a member of parliament. They should be stripped of their honorable title. They should be removed from the House of Parliament. They should be in disgrace. There should be some actual consequences. $500 fine? Sucks, right? I didn't mean to give sole source contracts that were taxpayer funded to my best friend here for our hours of hanging out together and drinking wine. I did though, right? So there should be some kind of actual consequences, and there isn't. And so this office doesn't actually do its job, and it's kind of like funding something that is bullshit. Like we all know it doesn't actually do the job that it's supposed to do. So why are we pretending? Just like Justin Trudeau, we all know he doesn't do the job that he's supposed to do. So why are we pretending? Stop pretending. Remove him and get somebody in there who likes the country. Like Canada's a really great place. I love Canada. You should have somebody in the Prime Minister's office who really likes it too, right? not Justin Trudeau. He hates Canadians, and apparently he hates the country too. He goes anywhere else, everywhere else. What a guy. And I don't mean that in an endearing way. David Mulrooney says, interim ethics commissioner's resignation prevents new investigations into the Liberal government. Great, we'll stop wasting money. Less government. Yay! All of them should go on strike. Yay! Take them all out. This does nothing anyway. Investigations into the Liberal government. We've investigated the Liberal government. We've found that they've broken the law multiple times and violated ethics laws more times than I can count on one hand. Maybe two hands. Anyway, and what shall we do with these Liberals? We will give them a $500 fine. It's useless. It's nothing. It's nothing. It's less than nothing. It's insulting to Canadians who want to believe in something like that. It is a fantasy. It's not accountability. It's the facade of accountability. It makes you think something is being done when in actuality, nothing is being done. The worst they can do is levy a $500 fine. Slap on the wrist. The ceremonial slap on the wrist. You're bad, Mr. Prime Minister. Bad boy. Can't even hit him with the newspaper in the nose. You shouldn't do that to dogs. That's terrible. Don't do that to anybody. Maybe Justin Trudeau. Maxime Bernier, he says, this is ethics, and ethics don't really exist. There is no standard in Canada anymore. We used to have high standards, I think. TNC News is reporting Dr. Theresa Tam lists climate change and capitalism and white supremacy as drivers of negative health outcomes. Okay, we've talked about this a couple of times. I showed you the original document where it actually says that, so you can read it if you're interested. Maxime Bernier responds. He says, she's still using health concerns as a pretext to promote communism. Yay. I like when politicians talk in very strong terms, and Maxime Bernier does that quite a lot. Back to the tweet. Theresa Tam has listed climate change among other social issues such as white supremacy, capitalism, colonialism, and racism as systemic drivers of negative health. And you should be worried about that, because health and your safety comrade is how they locked people down in the first place. They're going to try and tie climate change to health and then say you have to be locked down or we're all going to die. And they're going to be lying. And I don't know if people are going to eat it up, because people, I think, are inoculated against the big lie that's going on right now. But anyway, Kean says, documents reveal Dr. Tam's Public Health Agency of Canada makes request Twitter to censor tweet for offensive language. And this is counter signal, but more censorship is happening. And we're going to talk about speech a little bit later. But Dr. Tam is trying to use her office and position in the government to censor Canadians, talking about all of the things that were wrong with the response in Canada about health. And they're trying to say, well, we're experts and you're not. And if you don't listen to us, you're spreading misinformation and therefore you're dangerous. And that allegation is dangerous. Moving on.